right, we are going to call this meeting of the Home Advisory Group to order. Thank you, everyone, for your patience while we had a little log jam there. Appreciate that. Can we please have a roll call?
Okay, Consuelo Arguelles.
Present.
Don Bastian.
Here.
Bruce Roder. Andy Chavez. Lori Chasey. Michael Crandall.
Here.
Paula Garcia.
Here.
William Hennick.
Here.
Lynn LaPlante.
Here.
Don Pachowski.
Here.
Julie Renahan. Scott Biger.
Here.
James A.
And please make a note that some of our members are not here because they are still in another meeting. Thank you for that. Do we have any public comments today?
No.
No. Okay. I move to approve the minutes from the Home Advisory Group regular meeting that was held on Tuesday, June 1st, 2021.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Do a voice vote now, right?
Yes,
In
yes,
person? Okay.
We have a quorum, yes.
Yay.
Yes, we have a quorum.
So you just
Okay.
have to say all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yay, that motion passes. Okay. I move to approve an action item, recommendation for approval of the transfer of ownership and assumption of the Home Investment Partnership Program Requirements Agreement between Myers Commons Senior Housing and Myers Commons Harmony Housing for project number HM04-05 Myers Commons Senior Housing.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? There's a second.
I just kind of want to just make an introductory remark, and then Dave will kind of give a little more of an overview. I want to thank Dave and the staff for the amount of work that they did to get this through. It's a real win here. We have a new affordable housing developer coming into DuPage County who specializes in purchasing existing affordable housing and extending the affordability. So when we were notified that this property was up for sale, we were in somewhat of a conundrum because we had restrictions on the property that lasted for another 5 years. So, David, you want to say more about it?
Yeah, I would say that, so initially the federal affordability period for this project is 20 years. They were in year 15. So if there's any transfer that occurs within that 20-year period, we have to vet the whole project just as though it were a new project, make sure all the financing makes sense, make sure we're aware of all the partners, aware of all the lease restrictions, all of those kind of things. So the good news was for us was we were able to do that. We do think this is the right partner. Additionally, they just are assuming everything. So there's no renegotiation of terms. There's no change in our mortgage or in what will be coming back to the county, basically. So this is a straight assumption in that sense, where everything that was initially negotiated with the first partner is now just being passed on to the second partner. So we did, we got the notice in late May, and so they were initially planning on hoping to close in June. We pushed them back a little bit just so we could make sure we had all of our ducks in a row, but the project looks good, financing looks good, and we're confident this will be a good partner for the county. So staff has no concerns about moving forward with this transfer.
Thank you so much, Dave. Are there any questions that anyone has? No? Okay, then all in favor? Aye. Aye, that motion, anyone, any nays, any against? No, that motion carries. Thank you. And then, shall we move?
No, they're
So everyone's here, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
they're
great.
here.
Moving on. We've got an informational item, introduction to, overview of home program.
This is just, and I'm not going to read this for you, but this was just an idea of giving you a sort of snapshot of where we stand with the home program as an intro to potentially further affordable housing conversations in the county. Most pressing is probably the $6.5 million that we got through the American Recovery Plan Act that comes through HUD, and it comes to us as our allocation of home funding. HUD is still writing the rules on that in terms of what we can do and what we can't do with that, but it'll obviously come before this board to determine how we should spend that funding. We've heard some, kind of like rumors that they may be a little more flexible than they have been historically with home funds. Home funds are historically very regulated and very tough to spend, but we haven't seen that yet. But the idea was this just gives you a snapshot of all the work that we do on affordable housing currently in the county. You can see we have 782 units that we maintain and monitor as affordable housing. We do large scale development projects. We do kind of one-off smaller projects. So the intent of this item was just to give you an overview of those activities, and then kind of as a precursor for future agenda items about the $6.5 million that will be coming.
Thank you, Dave. Are there any questions that anyone has?
Just a reminder of the sense of scale of that 6.5 million. It's 3 times. It's a little more than 3 times what we
Yeah.
get in a typical year. So it's a significant additional allocation.
Correct. And then with the same sort of staffing needs, correct? So this is going to be, you know, an
Sure.
undertaking that
Sure.
we're going to
Right.
really focus on.
Right. The benefit is that this has and I'm sorry to interrupt you,
Okay.
has a longer spending horizon. So I think the deadline is like 2030. So we really have time to have some very thoughtful discussions about the best way to invest these funds.
Yeah, so we're really looking forward to those conversations and having those in the future. So watch this space. Okay, is there any other business? Seeing none, I move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
So moved.
So, yes, went out of order. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes. Let's move on to our next meeting. Let's have a call to order. And again, thank you for your flexibility with our timing. May we please have a roll, one moment. There you go.
All right.
A roll call, please.
Consuelo Arguelles. Aye. John Bastian.
Here.
Amy Chavez.
Here.
Lori Chassie. Michael Crandall.
Here.
Paula Garcia.
Here.
William Henneth.
Here.
Lynn LaPlante.
Here.
John Pachowski.
Here.
Julie Renahan. Here. Scott Weiger.
Here.
James A. Okay, form.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any public comments?
No.
Okay, moving on. I move to approve the minutes from the CDC Executive Committee regular meeting that was held on Tuesday, June 1st, 2021. Second, Chavez. Thank you. And can we do a roll call, please? I'm sorry. Sorry.
First.
Oh, yeah,
So
that was a
moved.
second. Can you, so moved and then a second by member Chavez. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Wonderful, that passes. Okay, moving on to our action items. I move to approve the recommendation for approval of a third modification to a community development block grant agreement with Kids Above All, formerly known as ChildServe. Project number CD 19-12, Lyell and Downers Grove Group Home Rehabilitation, extending the project completion date to October 31st, 2021.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. And Dave, would you like to speak to this?
Sure, I'll be brief and a little bit blunt. This is just a project that needs to get done. It's a 2019 project. It's not a huge amount of money. Staff have already put an enormous amount of time into it. We're giving them kind of one final extension. If you look closely, we actually gave them 2 more months than they asked for. We just, rather than bringing it back again in another month. But we really just need, there's some back and forth with the change order, but we just need them to get that resolved and get this project done. So this is, should be the final extension for this project. And we're hopeful that they'll be able to finish everything.
Okay, thank you, Dave. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? That motion passes. Next, I move to approve recommendation for approval of the cancellation of a community development block grant agreement between DuPage County and Midwest Shelter for Homeless Veterans, 433 South Carlton Rehab Phase 2, project number CD 20-05, with reprogramming of the $245,700 in funds.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, thank you. Dave, would you also like to discuss?
Yeah, I would say you have heard me harp in previous meetings about the importance of a capital needs assessment for nonprofit partners. This is exactly why we put a new roof on this building less than a year ago. The proposal for this year's project would have required removing the roof, tearing apart the roof. That's something that they could have anticipated if they had a capital needs assessment, thought about their needs and kind of sequenced their project accordingly. Their 21 project, they also have not yet got the variance that they need from the city to complete that project. So we went back and forth, we discussed it with them. They agreed to this of canceling these projects. They still do have a proposed project at the Larson home, which we expect to fund over the next couple of action plan years. So it's not like we're totally removing them as a partner. We still expect to work with them. They do plan to complete a capital needs assessment on this project or on this facility, and then will come back to us, I assume, in future years and ask for assistance. But unfortunately, with timing, obviously, we've talked a lot about timeliness of this meeting and how quickly we're spending our money. This is going to be a setback for that. But there's not a way that we can move forward, or we couldn't recommend a way to move forward with this project where we're going to tear off the work we just did on the building. So
Right. Thank you for that explanation. Any comments or questions? No? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? That motion passes. Next, we have I move to approve recommendation for approval of the cancellation of a community development block grant agreement between DuPage County and Prairie State Legal Services, project number ES 20-4C Legal Services for Homeless Persons Emergency Shelter with reprogramming of the $13,037.25 in funds. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion?
I feel like I don't have the most upbeat agenda items for today.
We appreciate you, Dave.
We talked about this, I think, at 2 meetings ago, where they've changed the rules of how ESG can work, and basically the way Prairie State provides legal services, they're not eligible. And so we canceled their ESG CV agreement, and then we're ending this one based on when that determination was made. I would just remind the committee that Prairie State received over $400,000 in CDBG CV money, which they'll be able to provide legal assistance with. So I don't think this will be a big impact on the agency, but it is just something for compliance reasons that we think it's best to cancel this agreement.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? That motion carries. Okay, we have our informational items. Number 1, CDBG DR grant status update.
So this extension was approved at HHS this morning. HUD, our grant, this is back to a flood event in April of 2013. And since that event, in different installments, we've received $31.5 million to do work preventing floods or preventing future flood disasters. We have spent 28.5 of that, so we're pretty much down to less than 3 million. We were thinking that we would end the grant in September of 2022 and kind of had our final projects all lined up. HUD decided, no, we need an extra year, and to make sure we spend out all of the money. So they want us to spend the full 31.5. So they've extended a year. We've added a project to help spend that final amount down. And this is just because it's been so long, and because I think there's 2 staff in our office who were actually here when this grant first came. This is just a summary of all the projects that we've done with that money over the time period. So.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have the informational update on open projects.
So no, there's no item, there's nothing in your packet on this. This was just a reference. We're doing quarterly project status updates, as you'll recall now. So the next one will be September, but last time Mary had suggested that we also provide just overall how many projects we have. So we have 88 open contracts. So the quarterly project status that we talk about is on our CDBG grant, because that's what we're measured against the most. That's what our timeliness test is on. We have about 40 CDBG projects. I guess the point to be clear on is that that's not the only work that we do. We have other grants that we're managing, and the total amount of agreements that we're managing with any partner is 88. And that's spread across home, ESG, CDBG COVID, ESG COVID, still some disaster recovery funds, and then we have an NSP grant that's even older than the disaster recovery grant that we're still kind of closing out the final pieces of. So this was just to kind of give a high level. This is the number of contracts that we're managing, and you've heard me say before, I'm very much interested in reducing that number. So as we're making policy changes and things like that, that's why I'm trying to work that number down.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that update. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Yes.
I just want to say, thank you, Dave. I mean, I think what normally we have half that amount of contracts or so, right? And the hard work you're putting in is helping us do our job, and I just want to recognize that.
Oh, it's the staff deserve as much or not more recognition.
Truly, well, for all community services, it's really something to behold.
Yeah, we are very, very impressed with our staff here, and we're very grateful. So thank you for all your hard work. Other business. Does anyone have any other business?
I do have.
Yes, Dave.
I have 3. I'll try to be quick. One is we are still waiting on our 2021 money from HUD. So you've heard me talk about timeliness. We can't do anything until HUD issues us their money. So they have not issued our 2021 agreement. Unfortunately, what this is going to look like is that some of our municipal partners might miss the construction season with the work they were hoping to do. So that is a challenge. Everything on everything our staff can do has been done. So it's sitting with HUD and it's on them to return it. But we get to this window where you're in sort of this window before, to go through the bids and do everything you need to do to get the construction project started, then you're running up against the concrete plants shutting down. So you get into this window and it looks like we may miss some of that for 2021. So we've done the math. We're not going to fail timeliness right now as it stands, but there's a chance if we have another setback or something goes wrong that that's certainly a risk for this year. So that's just to update the group on where we're at with our HUD money.
I'll just say, I have reached out to the HUD staff and headquarters, the DC staff, the people who run the Office of Block Grant Assistance. I've indicated to them that this is a major issue, that we're concerned about timeliness, that our municipal partners have identified this, this as a barrier to getting done with this year's construction season. They indicated to me on a week ago, Thursday, that the agreements were on their way to the field office. We still haven't heard anything. So, I mean, at a staff level, we're doing everything we possibly can to try and, shake these agreements loose from the DC office. But when you have an April 1st program year start and it's August 1st and we don't even have the agreements, it's extremely frustrating. I think what's most frustrating is that the federal budget was actually passed relatively on time this year. Often our agreements are late because federal budget, there's continuing resolutions and they don't pass the budget till February or March, but I think the budget was passed in December, the full appropriation. So there's really, we're now, 9 months past when the budget was passed and we still don't have our agreement. So it's terribly frustrating.
Did they indicate any reason for the delay?
I know two things. I know HUD has had a huge flurry of retirements in the last 3 years. So the Office of Block Grant Assistance is down. And the same Office of Block Grant Assistance is getting the CDBG-CV money, the ES. So they're just as crunched as we are. So I assume it has a lot to do with that. But it's still, the most frustrating is if we miss our timeliness deadlines because they didn't give us the money. Because in the past, they have not taken that into consideration when they measure timeliness. When did they get their stuff to us? So it's terribly frustrating.
Yes.
Have there been any examples of extending that timeliness beyond August?
The timeliness measure is done, 60 days prior to the beginning of
January
your program year, and that's statutorily, that's written in the legislation. The only way that we could, what they have done is done basically a waiver of timeliness. They did it last year.
Yeah.
But they can't change for years, recipients like us have advocated that the timeliness measure should be adjusted based on when you got your agreements, not when your program year is. But that's not how it works. It would literally take an act of Congress to change that.
Well, maybe the waiver would be
Yeah.
helpful enough.
Right.
And it's possible that they may do that again this year if they waive it. I mean,
I
That's-
suspect
that's
they
for
will,
them,
but they
but-
can't say that they will, until they do. So.
Okay, we will hope.
Mhm.
Okay.
Two more quick ones. One, municipalities should have all received notice of our neighborhood investment application cycle. The big date to keep in mind is August 19th. There's a mandatory meeting on August 19th. If you want to apply for funds, you need to be at that meeting, or you need to have someone at that meeting. As a reminder for the group, we're going out for 3 years worth of applications to kind of finish out this 5-year cycle. And we're looking especially for municipal applications, neighborhood investment applications. And so we're reaching out to some partners who haven't applied in a couple of years and just trying to touch base with people. We'd like to get as many different applications as we can. So just a quick plug for that. And then the last one I had is so we just wanted this group to be aware, we're in some conversations with the Care Center about a large project that they are funding in part with, or they're proposing to fund in part with our money and in part with American Rescue Plan dollars. Basically, the way the Care Center has historically worked, they kind of get a set aside every year of one grant every year. The proposal is that to align with that other funding, it may make sense to try to give them all 3 years of funding in one group. We think we could do that mostly with cleaning up old dollars and not with necessarily taking, all the funding would be the same over that 3-year span. So we would still be able to fund municipal project. We'd still be able to fund some existing awards that we have. But I just wanted this group to be aware of that. This is not a voting item, but just something that we're talking about. It might make more sense from their timeline if they can kind of have all the money at the same time and do all the work at the same time. That they're really talking about some major improvements over there, and we'd like to be a part of that. So this is just an informational item at this point.
Thank you, Dave, for that update. Does anyone have any questions about any of those items or issues? No? Okay. Well, our next meeting date is September 7th, 2021. And with that, I move to adjourn the meeting. So moved and a second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Dave, what was